I think everyone has gone through this at some point. You wanted to develop some crisp aim like all the pro players you watch, so you downloaded an aim trainer like AimLab. You test out the scenarios that they commonly do, and you start to see yourself improve quickly. All of a sudden, you hit a wall, and not only are your scores stagnating, but you don't know what's holding you back from improving. What's up, ProGuides fam? It's Royal G, and I'm here to help you with that. Today, I'm going to share some tips and secrets to mastering flicking scenarios, some insights to understand what flicking actually is, and also some practical advice for improving your aim to a radiant level. So if you're looking to break past your limits, let's get started. So to start this video off, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that I found throughout using aim trainers that help me improve at faster paces and get higher scores in scenarios. To do this, I'll take some of the main scenarios like GRIDSHOT, spider shot, six shot, and reflex timing to give you a better idea of what I mean, and hopefully help you speed up your progress as an aimer. And of course, don't forget to download AimLab if you want to test it out yourself. Although, I would imagine that if you clicked on this video, you probably already knew about AimLab and have used it at some point. So let's start off with GRIDSHOT. Many people love this scenario because not only does it test your accuracy on quick flicks, but it also tests your speed as well. It feels really cool when you're hitting shots at rapid speeds, and players like Tens and Ethos and other popular streamers can be seen pulling off insane scores all the time. So how do they pull it off? First of all, obviously, they have pretty insane aim. But building that aim isn't only muscle memory and tons of practice. It has a mix of technique as well. It's sort of like how if you have good aim but you don't know how to play Valorant, you're probably going to lose even though your aim is better. So if you want to break past your limits, you have to figure out the technique to consistently score higher. One strategy I've seen people suggest to improve is using the metronome technique, which is to set a pace and then shoot targets based on that beat. In my personal opinion, that's very counterproductive to the point of GRIDSHOT. The reason here is that by doing so, you're removing a crucial part of aim, which is the mental aspect that confirms your shot. It kind of works if you're still a beginner because it dumbs down the process a bit, but it doesn't build the right skills to get the most out of your training. And before you head to the comments to call me out, I'm a Radiant player who has an extensive background in FPS games. I competed semi-professionally in CSGO, and I've spent thousands of hours experimenting with aim training techniques and coaching players in FPS games. I may not be the best, but I would say I know a good amount about developing aim. This is my take, so I could still be wrong. Try to hear me out first. The secret that I feel is more important than anything for GRIDSHOT is to treat aiming like you're breathing. Instead of trying to go as quickly as possible or to follow a set beat, you should be speeding up and slowing down based on how much control you have at the moment. The reason this helps is because it gives you an intuitive feel of when you're confident in your aim while maintaining precision. So if you're going fast and then you start losing control, slow down until you're accurate, and then gradually build up the speed again. Once you get used to this, you'll become better at judging your internal pace, which I think is the ultimate goal of playing GRIDSHOT. In reality, you never have to shoot at hundreds of targets quickly, and the targets themselves aren't very hard to hit anyways. What really matters is that in-game, you're able to make quick adjustments confidently without breaking your focus. Which leads me to the question of the day. Do you think AimLab transfers into your gameplay? For the longest time, I was on the side that felt aim trainers didn't really help with in-game scenarios. And for the first couple of years of playing FPS games, I never touched any aim trainers. But after realizing that I had specific weaknesses in game that I just couldn't seem to fix, I downloaded aim trainers to see if they could help, and I've been sold ever since. In my opinion, any type of aim training is helpful in some way, and even if it doesn't transfer one-to-one in game, it helps you in ways that you may not even notice. So that's why I'm on the side that trusts aim trainers like AimLab. Next up, let's cover another classic aim training scenario that I personally enjoy a lot, which is spider shot. At first glance, it seems really standard and doesn't have much depth, but if you watched our other AimLab video, you would know that this has a lot of applications in game. Beyond that, this is one of the most standard ways to practice aim that you can transfer to almost any FPS related game. So being able to train this scenario efficiently is very helpful. The secret tip that I have for this scenario that will not only increase your scores, but also help practicing flicking a lot more is to play spider shot on inverse. What I'm basically saying is, when people play spider shot, they shoot the center target and then react to the random target afterwards in a sort of 1-2-1-2 pattern, with the 1 being the center target and the 2 being the random target. But if you change the mental pattern to 2-1-2-1 instead, not only will it become easier, but you'll likely get more efficient practice out of it as well. Here's why. First of all, we know that the center target comes in a set location, so you'll always know where it'll be. If you play by the 1-2-1-2 pattern, you're basically reacting both of the ways by adjusting to the second target, and then reacting to your new mouse position and returning to the center after the flick. This not only slows you down, but also makes returning to the center a recovery move instead of a flick. If that didn't make sense, the best way I can describe it is that if I focus on the center target, the second target comes as a reaction, and then I judge the distance, and then I flick. After the flick, now I'm resetting my position to the center to prepare for that again. However, if I focus on the second target, then as I react to hit the second target, I'm simultaneously mapping out the flick back to the center, and making the return to the center the actual flick rather than the reactive part. This is faster because my adjustment to hit the outer target won't be necessarily a flick, but only a reaction, and then after I hit the outer target, my return to the center target is already mentally prepared. Another thing to note is that as I'm mentally preparing to flick back to the center, I already made the same adjustment once already, so my flick back will not only be easier, but build better muscle memory. This makes your training much more effective, and there's no recovery step anymore as well. And if that still doesn't make too much sense, I suggest you just give it a try yourself. Pause the video and download AimLab and test out the scenario to see the difference. And while you're at it, make sure to check out all the awesome training playlists created by pro players like TENS, as well as Valorant specific training scenarios that were made from Valorant's partnership with AimLab. If there's anything aim related that you need to train, AimLab has you covered, so click the link in the description to get started today. Now that we've covered the two classic training scenarios that everyone has done, let's cover a less known but equally relevant scenario, 6-shot. This scenario is great for people trying to work on precision since the targets are small, and it's also helpful for practicing micro adjustments. It's quite straightforward, but it's also hard to improve speed, especially when the targets require a lot more focus to shoot. So to help with that, one thing that I suggest you do to help focus and practice your aim more intently is to map out your shots. What I mean by this is to have a sort of internal counter that ranges from 2 to 4, where you sort of choose that many targets beforehand and keep a counter in your head to designate them. So for example, I could choose this target as 1, this as 2, and this as 3. That way, as I'm shooting the targets, I don't have an issue with having to select a target and then adjust, which makes my target selection much more efficient. This lets you focus on the aiming part rather than the selection, which can slow you down or cause you to miss. And while this may feel weird at the start, after a couple tries, it should make the scenario feel much more natural and streamlined. Another tip that I can suggest is related to the GRIDSHOT tip of treating aim like breathing. But in this case, it's to mentally recognize whether the next target is a harder adjustment or an easier one. Obviously, for closer targets, it should feel easier, and for further targets, it should feel harder. You want to keep that feeling in mind when transitioning targets and mapping out shots, and that way you'll get a better judge of your comfort zone, which translates to more precision in Valorant. It doesn't matter if you can do 1-2 flicks if you don't feel comfortable while doing them, because that just means you won't do it in game. That's an insight into aim that I think is super important. Precision is a mix between mechanical skill and mental recognition. If you can't feel comfortable while aiming, then your aim will naturally hesitate and therefore suffer. And for the final scenario that I will cover, let's talk about a scenario that is basically spider shot without the center target, which is reflex shot. But if you watch me doing this scenario, you'd think that I'm just doing spider shot anyways, and that's basically the tip. What's really cool about this is that even though you're not confined to placing your crosshair in the center, there's a ton of reasons why you should be placing the crosshair in the center. First of all, the center position reduces the maximum distance you have to travel between each target. So even if it spawns on the left or right, you only have a certain amount of distance compared to if you're aiming on the right and then the target spawned on the left. Secondly, returning to the center in reflex shot is valuable because in this scenario, speed is not an issue, which means the recovery step that was unnecessary in spider shot is now good, because you're resetting your mouse and preparing to react to the next target spawning. Third, it introduces a spot on the screen that is arbitrarily more important than the others, which means you'll naturally return to this position automatically after a shot. Describing it in this way may not ring any bells, but notice how in a game of Valorant, your crosshair is typically placed at the area where you think the enemies will be. All three of these reasons basically just teach you the importance of crosshair placement and the ability to maintain good crosshair placement. Good placement means you want to minimize the distance your crosshair has to move to shoot. It also means you want to be comfortable while maintaining crosshair placement, because if your arm is all twisted while holding an angle, your aim will feel unnatural. And finally, it means that no matter what situation you're in, there is some position where your crosshair placement is the most efficient. The point of reflex shot is to practice reactions first and foremost, but it doubles as an important set of insights on aim and why crosshair placement matters. So if you can get good scores on this scenario, then that means you're mechanically good enough to play any tactical FPS. You just need to have the game sense required to know where to place your crosshair the most efficiently. And now that I've covered the scenarios I wanted to cover and have given you the tips to improve faster, I want to take a quick moment to redefine the term that we use to describe this type of aim. Many top-level aimers have started to adopt a different way to describe the term we call flicking as click timing instead. If you think about it, this makes a lot of sense. When you flick, you're speeding up your adjustment to close the distance between your target faster. But unless you're an aimbot, your aim will likely not land exactly on where you're aiming at. So what really causes you to hit that shot is not pinpoint perfect aim, but actually timing your shot in line with the speed of your adjustment. For example, if I go slowly, I have a better window of time to hit my shot on this bot's head. This is just aiming normally, and since I'm comfortable with my aim, I can even stop on the head and shoot because the speed is easier to manage. But if I go faster, it becomes harder and harder to control that speed. And at a certain point, I have to mentally feel out when my crosshair will reach the bot's head by noticing the speed of my adjustment. This is a super important insight not only for training flicking, but for all aim in general. Basically, you have to be mentally on point to have your aim be on point as well, or else you can't time your shots properly or even react properly. With that being said, I hope this video helped you understand more about flicking as a whole and also give you some ideas on how to improve your training. Let us know about any feedback you have on how I can structure this better or any other things I should cover. It's been Royal G, and as always, good luck on the grind.